What's going on, guys? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at this Black Friday special laptop that I recently picked up from my local Walmart. This is the MSI GF63. And these were on sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday for $499, and in this video we're going to see if it was worth picking up for that $500 price tag. When it comes down to it, this is not a high-end gaming laptop whatsoever. This is more of a budget gaming laptop, but I do think that it'll put out some decent performance. And in this video, we're going to be running some benchmarks, testing out some of our favorite PC games. We'll also throw some emulation at it, and we're going to do a quick teardown just to see the upgradability of this thing. So it's known as the MSI GF63. We have a 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz display. Nothing special here. It is a matte display, so we don't get much glare. It actually looks pretty decent for a 1080p panel. We've got a single zone red backlit LED keyboard here. We've got a decently sized trackpad, dual stereo speakers, and this is powered by a 10th gen i5. It also comes with a 120 watt power supply. When it comes to I/O, over here on the left-hand side, we have a single USB 3.0 port. Moving over to the right-hand side, we do get Gigabit Ethernet. We have USB Type-C, two more USB 3.0 ports, and two 3.5mm audio jacks. And something I actually really like about this unit here is the HDMI is located on the rear. I don't see this much, but I do love the way this is set up. As for the specs on this unit, for the CPU, we have the Intel i5-10500H, 6 cores, 12 threads, base clock of 2.5 GHz with a max turbo up to 4.5. The GPU is the NVIDIA GTX 1650 Max-Q design. This does draw less power, and it's a bit less powerful than the regular 1650, but with an overclock, we can kind of match that performance. This comes with 8 GB of DDR4 right out of the box. It's only using a single stick, but we do have two DIMMs in here, so we can easily upgrade all the way to 64. A 256 GB M.2 SSD, and they also send hardware to add a 2.5-inch drive, so that's another easy upgrade there. A 15.6-inch 60Hz 1080p display, AC Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.0, and this is running Windows 10 out of the box, but I've upgraded it to Windows 11. As soon as I booted it up, it asked me if I wanted to upgrade. So yeah, I'm actually super excited about testing a bunch of stuff out on this thing. But before we move on any further with this review, I do want to mention that this video is sponsored by SimplyNuc and their all-new Platinum Snuck book. We have the Elite and the Pro. You can opt for a RTX 3060 or an RTX 3070 GPU. And right now, SimplyNuc is offering $300 off the Platinum Snuck books, the Elite and the Pro, which makes it the lowest price that these workstations have ever been sold for. This mobile workstation is based on Intel's all-new X15 laptop platform, which means we get that mechanical optical keyboard, we've got a glass-covered trackpad, and a full magnesium frame. Both of these portable workstations are powered by Intel's Tiger Lake 11800H. We have 8 cores and 16 threads there with a boost up to 4.6 GHz. And when it comes to the GPUs and the new Platinum Snucks, you can opt for the Pro model, which contains the NVIDIA RTX 3060 and 6 GB of GDDR6 VRAM, or the Elite model with the RTX 3070 and 8 GB of GDDR6 VRAM. These are customizable over on SimplyNuc's website. I will leave a link for this in the description. We can opt for up to 64 GB of RAM and 16 TB of NVMe M.2 storage. They've also got onboard Wi-Fi 6 and a 2.5 Gigabit Ethernet port built in. So if you're in the market for a powerful mobile workstation that in your off time you can also play your favorite AAA games on, I will leave a link to SimplyNuc's website in the description, and remember, right now you can get $300 off the Elite or the Pro, which is the lowest price that these workstations have ever been offered for. Alright, back to the GF63. I did pull the bottom off just to show you here. There is a slot for a 2.5-inch drive, and they do send hardware. We've got that M.2 SSD that is user upgradable. We can always upgrade this if you need some more storage, but I would personally probably just add a 2.5-inch SSD. And as you can see, we do have 2 RAM slots. I was actually worried that some of this RAM would be soldered to the board, but they've left it just like this. It's only populated with a single 8 GB stick out of the box, so if you wanted to bring this up to 16, it would be relatively cheap, but I'm actually surprised to see the upgradability in this thing. Not bad at all for a $500 laptop. We've got that 2.5-inch drive, SSD, and we can always add more RAM. Jumping right into one of my new favorite games, we have Forza Horizon 5, 1080p, medium settings. This is doing an amazing job. We're at 73 FPS on average, and if you take a look at Afterburner, we're almost maxing out that 8 gigs of RAM, so adding more RAM would definitely help out. I'm not sure if we'd gain much FPS with a game like this, but we do have the option to overclock this Max-Q 1650, which would definitely help out. but I personally don't mind playing this at medium settings 1080p, and it's going to run it like this all day. I mean, it looks really good at these settings. If you wanted to take this game up to ultra settings and lock it at 30 FPS, it's going to run it just fine, but personally I like playing at 60, so I did have to drop it down to medium. So what I'm going to do now is plug this into my game capture card, that way we can get a better look at everything. Okay, so I've had this up and running for a little while. We're at 4 hours now. I haven't run into any issues. As you can see, we have that i5-10500H, 6 cores, 12 threads. We've got that 8 gigabytes of DDR4 running at 2933, but we have that extra DIMM, so when you want to upgrade, you can always do that. And the GTX 1650 Max-Q design. So with this, we still get 4 gigabytes of VRAM. It doesn't pull as much power as the regular GTX 1650, and it's a little less powerful overall. But we always have the option to overclock, and right here with the Dragon Center, this comes built in. We do have some profiles that we can choose from. I'm going to go with extreme performance, but if we go into here, we can actually set that core clock and overclock it basically automatically with Dragon Center to 160 megahertz, and the VRAM an extra 500 megahertz. We'll choose save here, and another little option we have is the cooler boost. But I'm going to tell you right now, turning cooler boost on makes these fans go to 100%, and this thing can get a bit loud. When that cooler boost is on, you don't have to worry about thermal throttling on the CPU or the GPU, but it's pretty much unbearable because, I mean, this single fan here is sitting at 100% when that cooler boost is on. But the stock fan curve that they have here with the extreme performance mode actually does a pretty decent job keeping everything nice and cool, so I'm going to leave that off for these tests. And one last thing, I was actually interested to see if this Max-Q was using GDDR6, and it is in this laptop here. I'm not sure if they do make a GDDR5 version, but it would make a difference in performance. But luckily, we've got DDR6. So the first thing I always like to do with these laptops is run some benchmarks. And first one we have here is Geekbench 5, single core 1145, multi 5068. Definitely not as high as some of the newer Ryzen chips with more cores, but I think this is looking pretty decent for the price we paid. Next on the list we have 3D Mark Night Raid with a 28,554, Firestrike 8,375, and Time Spy 3,539. I'd say for a $500 laptop, these scores are looking pretty decent, but we really need to see how this thing handles real-world gaming, so let's go ahead and test out some PC games, and then we'll move over to some emulation. And first up, we have Call of Duty Warzone 1080p with a mix of normal and medium settings. We got an average of 65 FPS out of this one. I'd say it's definitely playable, but you might want to just drop everything down to standard. Moving over to GTA 5, 1080p, high settings, average of 74 FPS. I knew that we'd have pretty good luck with this, and if you wanted to get a little more out of it, you could drop some of this stuff down to normal. And if you just turn VSync on, it'll run it at 60 all day. I mean, it's a great experience at 1080p on this machine. Marvle vs. Capcom Infinite, high settings, 1080p. We're at 60. I haven't noticed any dips, and usually on some of these lower end laptops with a lot of particles on screen, I do get some dips, but this was at a constant 60. Going into Doom Eternal, I figured we'd have really good luck at 1080p high settings, but unfortunately I did have to drop some of this stuff down to medium low. I'm not exactly sure if there's a driver issue going on, but I think we could get a bit better out of this. And finally, on the PC gaming side of things, we have Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, this is just a harder game to run. I dropped it down to 900p low. We're still at 100% resolution scale, and if we dropped it down to around 70% resolution scale or 720p, we can run this at an average of around 63 FPS. Now it's time to move over to my favorite part, and that's emulation. This machine handles emulation really well. First up, PS2 using PCSX2, 1440p, OpenGL backend. We didn't have to use DirectX 11. Gran Turismo 4 running perfectly fine. Here's WiiU using the CEMU emulator. We have Breath of the Wild, 1080p, Vulkan backend, 30 FPS. If you want to get 60 out of it, drop it down to 720p and you're golden, but I personally like running it with this higher resolution. I just think it looks a lot better. And finally, some PlayStation 3 emulation using RPCS3. Vulkan back in, and out of the box this is set at 720p, but as you can see we are locked at 60. There's a chance that this would run at 1080p, and I know that some games that ran at a native 30 on the PS3 will do that. Another thing I always monitor while doing my testing are CPU temps, and even though we have a single fan cooler in this, it did way better than I thought it would. At idle we averaged 41 degrees Celsius, average gaming and emulation 72, and in a 10-minute Cinebench R23 test, we did hit 91 degrees Celsius, but keep in mind, I mean that's maxing out all 6 cores and 12 threads for 10 minutes straight. Games aren't going to do that. This is with the stock fan curve, and when that CPU hits around 85 degrees Celsius, this does kick up to 100%, but while gaming, it was very bearable. But if you want to keep these temps a lot lower and you don't mind this fan going at 100%, you can enable that cooler boost in the Dragon Center. Now that's really going to help out, but it does get really loud. So in the end, I personally think that this was worth $499, and we also have some upgradability. We can do that RAM, we can change the SSD, and we can add a 2.5-inch drive. It would have been really nice if this was an 11th gen CPU, but we're working with that 10th gen, and those 6 cores and 12 threads actually do a really good job with gaming and emulation, as you saw in this video. And for $499, if you're able to pick one of these up on a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday deal, I'd say it'd be worth it if you like the performance you saw in this video. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I really appreciate you watching. I'd like to know what you think about this thing at that $500 price point in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.